Nothing's off the topic, right?
I don't care.
Wait.
We're just having a conversation.
Yeah. Well, Dave Rosenthal from Wild Pear Running, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, buddy.
My pleasure.
It's we've been wanting to talk to you for quite some time now. We're big fans of your store.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Gosh, we've been around 7 years now.
Yeah.
I just thought y'all appreciated heckling us at the park.
Yeah. So we would run. I think that's where we met you, was at Tom Bass, where
we just kept screaming at the guys following.
Yeah.
The fast guy, right?
Yeah. That's when Mike used to be fast.
And made fun of his shoes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Look, he's barefoot. That's got to be terrible.
Y'all must have been really looking at me.
Yeah, well, we focus on the details.
The shoes. It's the business.
Anything to keep our minds off of, I'm super uncomfortable. Hey, look at his shoes.
Well, yeah, you had quite an impressive number of people out there with you. I think you from 4 to 5 to 6 people sometimes.
Usually, we have like a core of 3 guys in my little group, but there's quite a few, different little running clans in Pearland. So we have our little group of 4 or 5 guys we're comfortable with, and we can say what we want to say without filters, and it won't get back to our wives.
Well, you're just now getting back into running from recovering from COVID, huh?
Yeah, I had some knee issues last year, so I got to walk a little bit more than I want to now. But yeah, COVID knocked me down pretty hard. Now starting to feel normal. So now I'm just out of shape and fat as opposed to
Well, how long were the side effects from COVID? I guess how long did you have it, the symptoms?
It's 4.5 months. I'm starting to feel like I'm normal now.
Wow.
It's a long time.
Yeah, I was only really sick for about 4 days where I was really sick, but then the headaches, and then I couldn't breathe and felt like I had asthma. It was garbage.
Oh.
And yeah, but I'm feeling good now. So now I can go out and be miserable exercising like everybody else and be normal miserable as opposed to
COVID
I'm going to stroke out miserable.
See, we briefly talked about that before starting the podcast, but it scares me a little bit because in my world, I'm healthy. So probably not going to get the extreme symptoms of COVID. And I imagine you're
a lot younger than I am too. I mean, there's other factors. And I had asthma when I was a kid. So I had juvenile asthma. So there's other, I'm about to turn 50.
Okay.
So we all got it at work, and I'm the oldest, and I'm the only one who had asthma at any point. So I think I was just more, from what I've read, I just think I was more at risk than they were. So, but compared to what some people went through, mine's nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't have to go to the hospital. I'm slower now. So my doctor gave me a hard time because I was complaining, and he's like, okay, so you do 5 miles in an hour instead of 7.
Oh.
And he's like, really?
Yeah.
Fuck off. Why are you calling me?
Well, you can run with Mike now because that's what about Mike runs, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't run 12 minutes.
It's funny because he knows you're full of shit.
That's not true.
They used to make fun of you and Hicks for just being behind me. Y'all need to catch. Y'all ain't caught up yet.
No, we made fun because you were the exact same space behind. It's like y'all were running together apart.
Yeah.
Like it's not like you were pulling away. Like you put that 40 feet on him, and then it just held for mile after mile.
Mike is a piece of shit because he is. No, so Mike got us, James and I both into running, and Mike's the type of guy. Let's go run together. AKA, I'm going to push you as hard as possible. There's never like, hey, we're going to run 8:30s. Or no, we would say we're going to run 8:30s. We would start the first mile at 8:30s and then gradually get faster and faster.
That's a pitfall.
That's the kind of friend he is.
I love the conversations that we would have with them passing up. We would always be thinking
3 miles screaming at each other.
Yeah. We'd always be thinking about the next thing. Like they would be going to the bathroom. We were like, man, I wish we could take breaks.
Yeah.
Too much drive.
Yeah.
Now again, significantly older than y'all. So our bladders, we're more at risk. We need to take those breaks.
We actually were planning, like once we pass y'all and we talked that shit, we'd be like, all right, what are we going to say to him next time? What are we going to get him?
Well, we just had our easy one, which is, okay, he's going to be exactly 42 feet, 7 inches in front of them next time. So it's just easy. What? Catch up to him. What are you doing?
That was good.
Well,
good days.
if you caught up, he'd speed up.
Yeah.
That's the trick.
Know that.
It's this mind trick we do on each other.
Yeah, he's just a shitty friend, isn't he?
I was just going half speed the whole time. So
I don't talk when I run. My buddies talk. And I talk all the time, except when I'm running.
Yeah.
And I'm like a mute. I'm just,
Are there a lot of people now at Tom Bass? Have you been back there?
Yeah, there's a lot of walkers. I mean, I kind of feel like that outdoor.
Get it as close as possible.
You can move it to your face.
As close as possible. There you go.
That outdoor activity stuff never really ended, right? I mean, I think people are still out there doing their thing, and
that's good.
I think the gyms shut down, threw people outside. I think, gosh, for those people who own different type of workout facilities that, pandemic just, it was really rough on them. So, but I think there were always people out there. It's just, it wasn't easy. I can stay 20 feet away from you. Easy.
Right. So
with a breeze.
So how did that impact Wild Pear? Because so for the folks that don't know, Wild Pear Running in Pearland, love the name too. Did you come up with that?
My wife did. We were going to be Naked Pear Running.
Oh, that's good. That'd be a hell of a search.
And then we decided we're not in California, so maybe we'll come up with something else.
Yeah.
So, but that was a working name, and then we changed. Then she changed it to Wild Pear.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, that sounds good.
Now, did y'all have the concept of y'all wanted to strictly do running and shoes, or did it start off as something else, or did it start off something else?
No, this is all I've ever done. So I worked at Fleet Feet Sports in Houston. I walked into one of their only store at the time, when I was 15 years old. Kind of emerged about 21 years later. And the gentleman, Jim Braden, who owns those stores, one of my best friends. He's a great guy, and he helped me line up a job. It was just time after all those years to move on. So then I worked for New Balance for almost 8 years.
Wow.
Awesome job.
What did you do there?
I was a salesman. So I had South Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana. I had a territory. Man, the first 3 years of that were a great job. And then my boss changed. And wow, did it go to shit fat. It was terrible. So then I quit in a really cool way. I was super proud of the way I quit. And then we said, I got to do something. Like, okay, I can not work for 6 months, but it's going to get rough after that. So yeah, we decided to open the store.
Awesome. So how long ago?
Gosh, 7 years. So I guess I quit from New Balance 7.5 years ago. I was driving back from Mississippi, and I had no idea I was going to quit that day. And my boss was losing her mind on the other line with me about something inane that didn't matter that I'd somehow offended her with. And I'm driving. I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. I quit.
Oh my God.
And at the time,
legit that way?
Yeah. And at the time, I was making well into the mid to upper. I was 150, 202,
wow,
135, 165. I mean, it was good money.
Wow.
And I just lost my mind. So I hung up on her. I called her boss, told him that I quit and that I would train my replacement, but if I ever had to talk to her again, that deal was done. I would be finished by the time I got back home.
Wow.
And so she called me about 20 times, didn't answer. Sent me texts, sent me emails, didn't answer them, because I figured there need to be some communication before my ultimatum kicked in. And about 3 days later, she called me, and I called him and I said, nope, deal's off. Ain't training nobody. She contacted me. I'm done. And I just mailed them all their stuff back. And
wow.
That's crazy. Did you ever think you were going to open a shoe store? Was it ever in your mind?
When I was a kid, I wanted to. Just because I worked for Fleet Feet, which is, gosh, now they have five stores in the Houston area. Great place. Still friends of mine. Love them to death. Because it's not really the running stores against other running stores. It's really us versus the internet.
Right.
So we all have kind of relationships with each other and get along. And Houston's one of those markets where there's not a lot of ugliness between the different running stores. Some markets there are, but not here. And that's kind of what I taught. And then it was like a childhood thing, right? And then you kind of grow out of it and go off. And then I had this great corporate job where I made really good money. But I was not happy that last few years there. It was a beat down. So I just didn't want to work for anybody else. And I figured I'd try this. And I was just young enough. I guess it would have been 41, 42 at the time. So I figured if it crashed and burned and I went bankrupt, I had a little bit of time to recover.
Yeah.
You know.
That's management or just your coworkers can really impact the job and just make it terrible.
It can make it just terrible. It can make something that shouldn't be terrible, terrible.
Yeah.
Like if you look on the outside of that job, maybe I averaged, I mean, I had to travel a lot, but even the traveling wasn't bad. I kind of liked that. I maybe worked, I mean, on a bad week, I worked 40 hours.
Yeah.
Like something had to go really wrong. On a good week, I was rolling at 25 hours to answer your phone, answer emails, forward stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it's just amazing how like one person can change it to make it so toxic that you're like, yeah. Oh, and the other thing that happened is they were going to take us in-house. So instead of being a contract, like 1099 guy, we were going to be employees. And, you know, God forbid, they were only going to pay me like $90,000 a year. And I'm like, okay, you can kind of beat me up for 150. Like, I'll take it, but I'm not doing this shit for 90.
Right.
Like, I can make 60 and never leave my zip code. So I rage quit. You know? And it was so funny. I told my wife, and my wife is very interesting. But like the little things, she can totally annoy me. Like all the little day-to-day things, we all have our little niggles, but like the big stuff, she's awesome. So I called her, I'm like, hey, I just quit my job. And she's like, awesome, you've been miserable. Great. So I don't know what we're going to do. And she goes, we'll figure it out. It's all good.
Wow.
I'm so glad you quit. You just sound better already.
Wow.
You know, where a lot of people,
Yeah.
So my wife's awesome at like the big, huge issues, but then like the daily stuff, we still have our normal, like, I don't understand why you're mad at me. What's happening?
I think that's the everyday, but that's interesting. These big corporations, your boss, people knew that she was a toxic person, but it's easier just to ignore people like that because we're going to get past those people one day. They're going to eventually leave, but they don't realize how toxic they are and they're impacting others.
Well, and the thing that was so tricky about her is she was super talented, very driven, worked hard. Nobody worked harder than she was. Intelligent. She just couldn't work with people. So they finally promoted her to the point where her direct reports were different. It wasn't like we just worked for her. She was just our boss. Everything we did had to be okay and go through her. But when they finally got her in the right position, I think she's done really, really well. And she was just terrible to work for. She was young, didn't have any kids. We were a bunch of old middle-aged dudes with a bunch of kids, and just it was bad.
Yeah. That's tough too.
Like, you didn't travel this week. Yeah, my kids got the flu. Are you married? Irrelevant.
Yeah.
I'm not going on the road when my kid has the flu.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you say to me. I'm not
strange.
going. It was that weird thing, and she beat up some of the guys on the team way worse than me because I'd stand up for myself. But yeah, the thing is, she had a really huge upside. So in this one case, I'll kind of defend New Balance in that there was a talent there. They just didn't have her in the right position.
Yeah.
She just didn't need to have a bunch of direct report tos.
Right. So your background, I'm assuming you ran track, you ran in college and high school and all that?
Ran in high school, ran 3 years at UTSA in San Antonio, and then 1 year at U of H. My dad got sick and I had to come back home, so U of H gave me a scholarship so I could kind of finish out apparently I got lucky, they had a little bit of money laying around, so
Awesome.
They were able to fund my last year of college that I wasted to not graduate with 4 years of free college. So I appreciate that.
How'd you do in college? Were you competitive?
Very average.
Average.
I mean, I ran way under 15, but I didn't run really that close to 14 for 5K, you know.
Yeah. Damn.
That's really good though.
Damn. What was it? What was it again? Let me register that.
Yeah.
14:32.
There's no way. God.
Hold on. So what is that? That's like a 5 minute per mile pace?
No, 5 minutes.
No.
Wait, no.
5 minutes is like a 15:37 pace.
Wait, and you were in the 14s?
Yeah, but a lot of guys are. I mean, that's not
normal.
every team. Almost every team has guys in the 14s.
Yeah, but not everybody in the world, like even if they put their mind to it, could do it.
No, that's what I mean. It's like I was fast, but I wasn't fast. I mean, it was lots of guys ran significantly faster than I did.
Did you get like formal coaching, or were you just naturally gifted?
One, I don't think I was naturally gifted because you end up getting to that level, and when you PR, you're lapped in a 5K race. You don't feel You know, you don't feel super fast when, you know, the guy runs 13:20 and he laps you and you're
golly.
like, so I'm, you know, like to put an example, I was good in high school, pretty good, not great, but pretty good. And then my first collegiate race, I went through the mile and I was like 137th place.
Wow. So were you always the...
You know, so you're like, and I ran a 5 flat first mile for a 10K and I'm at like 137. You're like, what is happening?
Yeah.
What was the longest distance that you competed in?
I think that I had actually a road 5 mile is probably the longest.
Wow. That's impressive, man.
Yeah, but it was
for us,
but it was a different
really
life.
Impressive.
Now I, you know, walk and run 12-minute miles post COVID. So.
Yeah.
It's like it was a different person, you know, at this point.
Yeah, it's probably hard on you because you've done it for so long, and then to have different times and just it's probably unmotivating a little bit.
Well, I do think coming late to the sport has its advantages. Like a lot of the guys who I'm acquaintance with and friends with are really gung-ho about the sport, but almost none of them competed at a high level. So they came to the sport later and they have that passion. Their bodies aren't as beaten up. Now, there are a few masters runners who did run competitively younger and just stayed healthy the whole time, but they're rare. Most of the late 40, 50-year-old guys who are running pretty well, or even 40-year-olds who are running pretty well, a lot of them didn't, or they have gaps in their, maybe they were really good in college for 2 years, dropped out, didn't run for 15 years and then came back. But there's a freshness. They're not as beaten up. Right. Yeah. So just staying healthy is a big part of it. But also, you know, the fastest guy in Pearland is, I won't say his name because he'll probably hear this podcast, but he goes to Orange Theory now and runs a half mile on the treadmill occasionally. Gets some really good HIIT workouts. Yeah. Can't run around the block, save his life.
But he's fast. Yeah.
He was fast. Yeah. You start making Olympic trials, that's a whole different level of fast.
I feel like I know who you're talking about, but yeah, that's and the theory too is like when you get older, your endurance boosts up if you stay healthy. Do you think that?
No, I believe that to be false. I believe what you're seeing is a convergence of a little bit of talent in years of training. You're really looking at it takes about 5 training cycles to really start getting near your potential. So if I'm 35 and I've never really trained properly and I start training properly at 35, I'm going to improve through 40, 41 maybe, 42-ish, and you're going to hit a ceiling, and then age is going to catch up, and then you end up, if you maintain, you're great, right? Yeah. So but what you're seeing, and take the anomalies out of it. Take the little 17-year-old Kenyan kid who just has a bigger engine than everybody else. But even though, the high-end marathon runners have gotten younger, not older. If you take out a few of the key names like Kipchoge or some of those guys who are older. I mean, he won his first medal at 18 in the world championships in the 5K. So, I mean, he was a world beater out of the crib. Take the faster marathoners are actually getting younger because you have these kids who start training properly in foreign countries now, or, not first world countries when they're 17. Well, then you see them at 22. Well, they're 4 or 5 years into a cycle. It's just they weren't training properly a generation ago, and they are now. So I think when we have this idea that marathoners are older, it's a very Western thing. We run 2 mile in high school, we run the 5K in college, you get out of college, run for a few years, decide you're not really good enough at the 5K, 10K anymore. Maybe you won a plane ticket or something and that's it. Then you decide, but that marathon trials, that's not as hard because, they'll have 200 guys go to that as opposed to, 20 on the track. Right. Yeah. So then they're in their late 20s, early 30s, but I think that's just because they didn't train for the marathon when they were 17. I think there's enough data out there because the other countries are different because those guys are just trying to make money. Right. And a lot of them aren't interested in the collegiate system in the U.S. So if they can make more money running a marathon at 20, that's what they're going to do. So
that's interesting. Yeah, I think you're right with speed, and then especially with marathons. What they're seeing now with like ultra marathons is like the older people are kind of dominating. And females for sure are dominating.
Well, ultras are so easy because there's so much unknown. There's so much unknown data.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a durability aspect that you don't have on the roads. I'm going to get so beat up for saying this. There's a lack of talent because the money's not there. So you don't have a 21-year-old 2:08 marathon Ethiopian saying, man, okay, I can go to Boston and get 20th place, or I can go to Western States and see what happens. Because they'll make more money getting 20th place at Boston. So when I say there's you don't have these the pond is different, like the fish are different, and I so want to see what happens once we, as that sport evolves, how it changes, because maybe they're not durable enough. Maybe they're just not. I mean, you take those guys who weigh 140 pounds, like how many calories can they carry? Yeah. You know, what's their fueling like versus what your fueling's like? Yeah. Then are they going to break? Are they going to get fractures? I mean, the bone structure is different. As far, you know, they're human hydroplanes, but their engines are way bigger. You know, their engines are way bigger than anybody doing ultras right now on the international level. But you don't have that crossover. You have a little bit like comrades in South Africa. You have a little bit of crossover. You'll have these guys who run 2:08 marathons and they'll win comrades, but that's different. That's not trails. Right. You know,
I think the ultra marathon are unique in that there's not a big prize at the end. You got these big savages out there that are doing it. The big names, you know, Courtney Dauwalter. These folks are sponsored by these running companies, but they're not.
And they're amazing athletes. I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but they don't have Formula One engines.
No, not at all.
They're NASCAR. So I want to see when you take a bunch of these little hydroplane, you know, but they might not be durable enough. They might not be able to. There's a power issue going up hills over rocks and things. It's different. I just don't think we know. Like, we know their VO2. There's some raw data out there. Yeah. Like, you take a guy who runs a 12:50 5K. You know, how many guys are there in the world that do that each year? 10. Yeah. Okay, so let's take a guy who runs 13:05. There's a lot more of those guys. What is their VO2 max compared to? What is their lactate threshold? Like, if you take all the things we can measure, they should make it a farce. But why haven't they? Right. Is it just the money? Is there other factors? Is there durability? There's not as much loose calories in their body, obviously. Yeah. So do we just need to fatten one of them up and see what? I mean, when I say fatten them up, I mean get their body fat up 2%. Right. Yeah. Like, I don't have an answer for that because nobody's really doing it.
I think there's an aspect to that. So the marathon for normal people, it's a long distance, but for these amazing athletes, you're basically sprinting the entire time.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But for ultra running, I think there's a mental aspect more than a physical aspect.
No question. So, no question.
So I think these.
And how does that translate?
Yeah, no, I'm with you thinking that some of these fast runners, they probably don't have that mental edge that a lot of these people have. They're just savages.
Well, a perfect example, take Walmsley, right? Yeah. Look at his 5K time. You take a guy who can beat him in a 5K by almost a minute. Yeah. But then let's make him a billy goat and see what happens. Like, it's just that we don't have any examples, so we don't really know what's going to happen. Yeah, we were talking to Chris Roglowski. I don't know if you know who she is. I've heard of her. Yeah, she's an obstacle course racer. She works at Grit Fitness, but she's not a normal human being. She's none of them are. Right? I mean, they're so far beyond.
But she does. She dabbles in ultras, and she talked about loving the pain. And getting over that pain, like riding that pain cave, and then getting to, she was on top of a mountain or something, and it was blissful. Like, she wanted to quit so bad, and she was crying, but then it became pure bliss. Like, that's a mental edge that some of these marathon runners aren't going to have.
It's obvious what we need to do is raise a few $1 million.
Come on, Nike.
And have Western States, whoever wins Western States gets $3 million, and then watch, every Kenyan, Ethiopian who can't quite make an Olympic team come out of the woodwork. And
that'd be interesting.
The mental side, I mean, hurting for 2 hours and 10 minutes is a whole different beast than what those guys go through in the ultras.
Yeah.
It's hard to compare that too, because they're like running top speed for an hour. What I don't know what that time is anymore. It's like an hour for these marathoners now, or 2 hours. But like that's got to be some pretty intense pain too.
Yeah.
You know, rather than just ran out throughout.
Yeah, but different, right?
Yeah.
I think, you know, I've heard people talk that, you know, for the trail running, being a little bigger, being a little, you know, but then you look at the people doing trail runs and it's like, I mean, it's so Eurocentric. It's so Western Europe and US centric that of course you're going to say it's going to be it takes advantage to be a 6 foot. Well, yeah, but I still kind of would be fun if you took a guy who's 5'5" and weighs 137 pounds, has run 13:05 and say, okay, let's give him 3 years and see. Like,
yeah,
that glam isn't
start
there
feeding
either.
him some chicken fried steak or something, fat him up a little bit and let him.
That should help.
The limelight's not there either. You're running by yourself majority of the time.
Yeah, but that should be like, why aren't we doing more drones? Like, I want to see some of these trail runs. I want to see every moment of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like the technology's there, I feel.
Yeah.
But we still haven't. They haven't really marketed it well. Like when you say I reach the top of the mountain and, you know, it's blissful, I'm crying, but I'm so at one with the universe. Like, why haven't I seen that?
Right.
Where is that on
I
YouTube?
know, that would be good.
There should be a GoPro on a little drone, like right over that person's head.
They got the bib trackers, but that doesn't really do justice.
No,
It's
you
not,
just see
there's
a
not
dot.
No, I want to see the dude fall and cry and get
Yeah.
up with, you know, blood spurting everywhere, and he's still running 7-10 miles.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh my God.
I can see this getting overdone. Like they have a little headpiece and they're like, all right, Billy, you're going to have to cry a little more. Zoom in on his face. Okay, I think we captured it. All right, get up,
Really
start
show
running
the
again.
pain.
Fall and
Show
go.
the pain. You're too far ahead. I'm going to need you to trip now.
Ooh, I could see it getting like that. But freaking drone batteries are shit too. And
Yeah, but
they could do
athletes
something.
would never go for that. There's too much competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's too much. I need to crush you. You know?
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think a lot of people try to get out of that like televised type of marathon thing. They're going to ultras for that. Some
There's a price
people
to
are going
pay,
there.
right? Yeah, there's a price to pay for that. But that lack of money goes back to what we were talking about before, is the composition of the athletes who are doing that event.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if I can just, you know, too much money to be made on the roads in Europe, you know, you can show up and run bad and make $2,000 for, you know, a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
So
have you dabbled in ultra long distances or anything past a marathon?
no, no.
Hell no.
I have had some. I'm one of those guys who broke down a little bit physically, so I'm just happy to go out and I ran 45 minutes yesterday with an ample amount of walking. It was lovely.
Nice.
That's funny. I guess what
I really enjoyed it.
I loved it.
It was great.
After college, did you mess around with halves or fulls? Like, did you get?
Well, I did.
involved in
Well,
that?
I had this thing. I was one of those guys. Like, I should train for a marathon. You know, because if you looked at the little tables and everything, maybe I can run fast enough to. Yeah, wasn't durable enough. I've always had more injury problems than I should have had, and I think I was not good enough and not durable enough.
I think you're probably modest. What was your? I want to hear the time for your marathon.
My PR in the marathon is 4:02 that I ran next to my beautiful wife.
Wow.
Every step until she cursed at me and made me run behind her because I told her she went out too fast, one too many times.
You were like her conscious.
No, I mean, I got, I never even got to the starting line fit.
Really?
I just kept getting hurt.
Wow. Y'all coach people at Wild Pear, right?
I don't like I've coached some kids over the years.
Okay. It's not, maybe not official coaching, but y'all have a community of runners that get together.
No, but I've coached kids.
Okay.
I like coaching kids.
Yeah.
Adults, I have less interest in coaching. I like talking about running and everything. I just like working. I mean, the kids are so much more fun than adults. They're great.
They're willing to absorb the information, I imagine.
Yeah, you know, the other thing is when you have these young guys and they have these dreams, like they want to go to college, they want to get a scholarship, they want to run in the next level. There's a drive there, and giving them distance running training, so a lot of stuff has changed. Nutrition's changed over the last, many decades. Core work, how you lift, like that's all changed. But as far as the running part, there's been very little changes since the 60s. So it's neat taking these kids who have a goal and they have a little bit of talent and working with them and watching them accomplish that. When you start talking about adults, there's so much other stuff going on in their lives that it's a difficult. I mean, nobody really wants to train properly. I mean, we all say we want to. Right. Nobody does. I mean, it's miserable. It's not fun in some ways. Some people take to it like fish to water, obviously, and that's one of the talents you need, but going through the proper cycles and trying to peak and then being really miserable and tired parts of the year. And it's just not easy. It's just this grind that most people don't want to. So with the kids, you can kind of go all in. Right. You want to run a 420 mile and run on the next level? Awesome. Let's go for it. It's harder with adults because it's not so hyper-focused and, they don't want to listen. Yeah. I don't know why adults don't want to listen. Yeah.
They're pretty much set in their ways.
Kids will put on blinder and say, okay, base training, I need to run a bunch. Yeah. Yes, sir. You talk to adult. Oh, you said run a lot. By a lot, I mean like 2 medium runs, 1 long run, 2 easy days. Like what would that equate to? Stairs will suck. And then with kids, they'll just listen, absorb it, and you just give them a reason why they're doing what they're doing and they're gone. Adults are harder. I've tried to coach a few adults over the years, and it's like only if they turned off their internet.
Yeah, I think adults know what they need to do, but they want you to tell them something.
The information's out there, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Just coach, modern distance training. It's there. It's just applying it to the individual and sculpting it a little bit, some injury prevention and doing some stuff. So it's some people can do more mileage, some people can do more speed work, or combinations. So there's a little bit of massaging that goes on, but it's all the same stuff. There are no secrets. You want to run fast, run a lot.
Right. Talk to me about
and then rest and then run a lot again.
Yeah. A lot of people don't rest.
No, the resting's the worst. It's so hard. That was my problem when I was younger, is I didn't listen to my body enough.
That recovery is important.
Well, and just not running when you're injured. I mean, so many people that it's so hard to figure out what's a niggle and what's an injury.
Yeah.
And now that I'm an adult, I'm pretty good about that. But when I was a kid, it was like I could still run 60, 70 miles a week and it was a stress fracture. That was really unpleasant. All right, I guess I'll take 3 months off.
And talk to me about, I'm a new person in the area. I'm looking for running shoes. What happens? What's the process like? I walk into your store. I don't know anything about running. How does your store, your employees help this person?
So what we do is it's a little old fashioned. I mean, our store is kind of like walking into a running shoe store back in the 80s. We got posters on the wall. We got, brown carpet on the floor. And part of that is I don't have any money at the store. So we're not super slick. But what we do is we'll watch people walk. We'll watch people run. We try not to get too deep into it. I mean, our job, as I see it, is to avoid the big obvious problems people could possibly have. So we have an Atrix scanning machine, which measures the volume of the foot, the height of the arch, the length, the width. But really it's about, if I have 60 pairs of shoes on the wall, and after I watch somebody, I try to delineate that down to maybe the 5 to 10 pair that'll be best for their needs. We also try to educate people a little bit. I mean, if somebody comes in and they have really, really flat feet, or they have really high arches, or their foot's really wide, we try to give them a couple pointers. Again, we're not doctors. I don't like Holiday Inn Express really. So, but we try to just give them a little bit and point them in the right direction. For a lot of people, it's like, look, you're a little bow-legged. So one thing you need to work on is your IT bands. So then we tell them what that is, show it where there is, Google it, do some research, but I would guess you might have some problems there. So you might want to talk about foam rolling with them. So it's just about educating people a little bit and then basically keeping them away from making mistakes. If somebody's heavier and they roll in a lot, they pronate a lot, we don't want them in a really soft shoe. so we don't bring them soft shoes.
Right.
So it's not as specific as you'd think, but we're trying to avoid the obvious problems for people. Now, once they're running a while and they've gone through a few pair of shoes and they have a couple thousand miles on them, then we can actually help a little bit more, because then based on what they're going through and the feedback they're having, then we can help more because we have more information. So we're not just trying to avoid the big pitfalls. Then we're, okay, so we're in a stability shoe, but you're having X issues. That's gone through 3 pairs of shoes. Okay, so 2 things, for most people, they don't really like the answers because in a lot of cases it's upkeep stuff. It's, you've got there's a deficiency, your hamstring's not strong enough, something like that. So we do a little bit of, then we try to point them towards a good PT or point them in the right direction. So where because a lot of the stuff people need to do is upkeep that they can do on their own at home. Right. Shoes might help. Sometimes they help a lot. But in a lot of cases, it's stretch your calves. Well, do you have any shoes that'll do that for me? No, stretch your calves.
Oh, my gosh.
My foot's broken 7 times. Don't wear minimal shoes. I've had nothing but knee problems. My feet are super strong. Try minimal shoes. It's...
Yeah.
Right. Just, you avoid, you've had Achilles surgery. Let's not go low drop, just because... why would we shoot you in the foot again? So the more information we have, the more we can help. But we're super nice. Our superpower is that we're just friendly and we try to support everybody. And we'll treat somebody who's out for a walk with all the same respect and dignity and get into the excitement of what they're doing as much as somebody training for a marathon, because everybody's road is just as valid. We're all really at this point just trying not to die of strokes. And, that might be break a 40-minute 10K for one guy, and it might be walking the poodles for another guy. So
right.
It's nice that you understand the customers, and you're almost diagnosing problems like a doctor would.
A little bit without being a medical profession, though. We try really hard to say, look, we work in a shoe. Like I had somebody many years ago. They were having all these problems. I'm like, well, what would you do? I would take way too much Advil, probably hurt my kidneys, and finish the run. But you have to be honest with people. Like, I'm a guy in a shoe store. You need to go to a doctor. Yeah. We do that a lot. You probably have a stress fracture. I can't diagnose you that I work in a shoe store, but I'd probably make an appointment with a medical professional at this point. Or you have plantar fasciitis, but you need to go to a podiatrist. Yeah. Why? Because they have shots. Yeah. But stretch your calf now. I'll save you the first visit to the doctor. Start stretching your calves.
Oh, we got that. Yeah. So you've been in this business for a while. You started with Fleet Feet, and then you went over to New Balance. So you have a well-rounded opinion of how maybe a shoe store to run, or even how the shoe business works. So what did you implement at your store that's different from other stores that you wanted to do, that you saw that was kind of a gap?
Sure. So I was lucky with New Balance, because my job was to service all the running shoe stores in, South Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana. So I got to see so many different stores. And one thing that struck me is when stores tried to be something they're not, like the owner or the manager of a store might think that it's all about selling shoes to runners, just runners, trying to help them accomplish their athletic goals. But then you looked at the customers that were walking in their store, and sure, they had some runners. They had some guys trying to run, a 20-minute 5K or a master's runner trying to break 19. But mostly it's just normal people trying to be fit and comfortable. A lot of people who work and their feet hurt while they're standing at work. Maybe they're, a pharmacist, or maybe they're a nurse and their feet hurt. Like, that was what I was seeing in all these stores. It was pretty consistent. Runners were a small portion of 20, 30, maybe 40% of their business. But the other, the 60, 70% of their business was not what they thought it would be. So I saw some stores that did a really good job of saying, our customers define what our store is. We don't. So the need in the community, if I'm a small business in a suburb of a big city, I don't tell Pearland what we're going to be. I'd like to think I see, we carry more width than we've ever carried before. But I saw stores that fought against that. What they wanted to do was sell spikes to fast people. And well, we don't want to carry those type of shoes for those people. I'm like, yeah, but they're walking in the door. I mean, part of this is making a living. So I think we've done a pretty good job there based on a smaller budget. I mean, obviously our budget's not as tight as it used to be. So after 7 years, I can finally like buy stuff I want to buy just because once in a while I let myself buy stuff I just want to buy because it'll be cool to have in the store where I couldn't do that before. So that was neat, being able to see all the different stores and different communities and the stores that did a really great job with who and what they were, and then other stores that just kind of fell flat because they were trying to be something that they really weren't. You're defined by the people who walk through your front door, not what you want yourself to be. And Pearland's kind of followed that. We have runners who come in. We have some serious runners that come in, and then it's a lot of people walking dogs, working in the medical center. They stand, feet hurt. That's, as probably more of part of our business than the running side is, but there's a lot of blending also that goes on. Like maybe don't work 50 hours a week in a surgeon and then go for your long run in the same shoes. Like we have to have that talk a lot.
Yeah.
Like get a pair with no blood on them for your long runs, please.
That might be helpful.
Yeah.
I want your opinion on the carbon boom that we're experiencing. Is this you've been in the game for a while. Is this a new thing? Is this a marketing scheme? Do you believe in them? What do you think?
I think that's a big question because there's so much marketing and so much money around these shoes.
Yeah.
I honestly have been hearing that they're magic shoes that make you faster for 36 years now. It was, Reebok tubes, like only old people on this are going to remember that. There's a guy bouncing along, and energy return. Like energy return's been talked about for so long. I think what Nike has done, and now the other vendors have absolutely caught up, is they've always made some of the best racing stuff. So there's two things going on, and you're going to have different camps. One, the science is out, and the shoe companies don't want the science to be investigated too much. Like the interesting thing is the studies that I've seen that are out there are not what you would call unbiased. When it's run by a lab funded by Nike and the lead person doing the study is a Nike athlete, kind of got to throw out those results. Yep. Having said that, one of the guys that runs from Saucony is and he's unbiased from testing a Nike shoe. He claims that there's value there. So there's a lot out there. But I think the racing flats are better than they've ever been. Are they making people faster? Some people react very well to the high stack height carbon shoes, and some people don't.
Yeah, I think it's
Molly Huddle doesn't. She's one of the best female, runners of the generation, and she can't wear them. So she's still the fastest. So,
I bet there's a little bit of a placebo effect. Like Nike says it's going to make me fast, so I feel fast.
There's some of that. There's enough anecdotal evidence out there that I don't want to just throw it out and just be that naysayer, that old crotchety man with my cane and being like, oh, it's garbage advertising, stupid Nike. But I do think one of the things that's confusing about this is like they did a deal with Strava, and they took all these Strava data, and they took people in training flats and then put them in carbon shoes, and they ran faster. But what they didn't do is then break that data down by racing flats. So there are lots of racing flats that aren't carbon that are faster than training shoes. Right. So you took a whole generation of people and Nike convinced them to buy racing flats for the first time, and they're faster. Yeah. Well, no shit. I mean, of course racing flats are faster. Yeah. They're also much harder on your body. There also leads a lot of people to injury. So just because it's faster, you have to apply it appropriately. And that's where I think the breakdown is. You have a lot of people who are running in, carbon plated shoes every day because they feel good and they go faster. So there's a lot of injuries coming out of it. But yeah, I mean, Nike's always made great racing flats, but now that there's parity with the shoes, like the new Adidas shoes, the new Saucony shoes, the Brooks Hyperion Elite shoes, there's a lot of parity now. I just think the racing flats got really good, but let's also be clear. All of this happened because of Hoka. This has nothing to do with Nike. This is Hoka. And then somebody at Hoka left Hoka, went to Nike, and they made it sexy.
Oh.
But big stack height, stiff shoes, that's what Hoka's all about. So it is interesting from my perspective watching a bigger vendor steal from a smaller vendor's idea, marketed it way better, and then put all the fastest athletes in the world in their shoe. Remember, Nike covers about 90% of the professional athletes. So Nike racing flats were already breaking all the world records, and it's just an odds game. If you cover 90% of the turf and you've got the most money to give to athletes, guess who sets the world records? Your athletes. So Nike finally found a way to market that and did a great job with good shoes, like really good shoes. Long-winded answer to, do I think the shoes make you faster? No, I don't, but I could be wrong.
Do you think from a long...
How's that?
Love it.
Can you tell us one more time? From a longevity perspective, you think the carbon base shoes are causing more injuries than the normal flat-plated shoes?
Well, but I think it's back to, we were talking a little bit before about minimal shoes. I think there are certain body types. If you don't have any Achilles, calf, plantar fascia, or foot problems, you're more likely to respond well to the carbon plate, because the reason if it makes you faster, the reason it does is it loads that system, so you get more spring out of that system.
Right.
Again, if you have someone who's had 2 stress fractures and a metatarsal and surgery on their Achilles tendon, just hit him with a hammer. I mean, why do that to them? So other athletes respond really well to different things, and Nike's brilliant. I mean, look what they did. They have a bunch of middle-aged people who've never been in racing flats running faster than they ever have because they are in racing flats for the first time, and then making a shoe that lasts 200 miles and then charging $250 for it. Yeah. Like, come on. There's some brilliance going on there.
That's the kicker. Did you ever
take nothing away from Nike? They've always made great racing flats, and nobody markets like they do. But the fluff surrounding it, like the reason the science is untested is because the shoe companies don't want it to be tested.
Right.
Who's going to fund it? Somebody to run an article in the New York Times to say it's bullshit? Or like, I can't make money on that, so I'm not going to fund that study. The only people who would fund the studies are the ones who would lose if the studies don't show what they wanted to show. So they just don't run the studies. It's all anecdotal.
Did you ever?
Which doesn't mean it's not true. It just means it's not provable right now.
Yeah.
Did you ever read the book Born to Run?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is your thoughts on that? Because
it's a fun book. It's nice.
I could tell his face.
You didn't like it.
It's a nice book. Anything that convinces 220-pound dudes in the suburbs to run barefoot on concrete's dangerous.
Yeah.
There's always been a place for minimal barefoot running in the elite community. There always has been, because it's an effective way of strengthening certain parts of your lower extremities. The problem is we're Americans and we take everything to this absurd extreme. Which is, hey, run 10% of your mileage, cool down, warm up, getting ready for spikes on the track, whatever, run a little bit on beautiful green plush. If you do 3-4% of your mileage on that, it's super helpful. And we've always done that. Somehow that translated to my neighbor, who's at least 250 pounds, hobbling himself barefoot up and down County Road 90 in Pearland until I finally just gave him shoes. And it's we take everything too far. We do it with our diets, We eat too many carbs. We all pretty much eat too many carbs. So the answer to that for us is to let's not ever eat carbs again.
Yeah.
How about we just eat less carbs? Like, running barefoot's great. Run barefoot a little bit, but
I like your
don't rock the concrete for 6 miles barefoot and wonder why something went wrong.
Yeah. I like your thinking. I think the barefoot minimalist shoes, even that book,
have a place. They have a place. There's no question. But what is the place? And that's where we have the breakdown.
Not the roads, I don't think.
Well, for some people, but there's outliers to everything. The problem is we make those outliers the rules.
Yeah.
And you have a guy. Who's that guy who used to run for New Balance?
Anton. You were telling me about him.
Yeah. I saw a presentation. Well, I wouldn't call it a presentation. It was a flowing thought from an interesting dude. Very nice. But it's like, yeah, you're running all your stuff on dirt roads in the mountains in minimal shoes, and you weigh 135 pounds and you're 5'10". Look at the crowd in front of you. Not the same.
No.
Like, it's just, but I think there's a place for it. I think there's always a place for it. Now, one thing that's neat about the minimal movement, which is the kind of the star of the whole thing, is first it exposed that a lot of shoes were overbuilt, like just radically overbuilt. 12 millimeter offset heel to toe. They weighed 1.5 pounds each. There's all these overlays we didn't need. So it streamlined that. It made lightweight shoes sexy. It made lightweight shoes popular enough that a lot more work went into that. It also showed that stack height in some cases is as important, and in sometimes more important than minimal versus maximal. So it brought everybody's stack height up, but it also brought everybody's heels down. So stack height being the measurement from the ground to the top of the midsole of the shoe, and then offset, how much higher the heel is in the forefoot. So all the heel forefoot offsets came down, which puts your foot in a more natural position, and everything got built up higher. So it was interesting to watch. Like, we wouldn't have Hoka, we wouldn't have all these carbon plated shoes without the minimal movement. Like, it's all an evolution.
Right.
So these engineers thought, oh, okay, well, zero drop. What if we did zero drop with just a shit ton of cushion? Like, what happens? Well, what happens is you make a bunch of old dudes' knees happy. I'll answer that. That's what happens. Yeah. But everything puts pressure on other parts of the system. So everybody wants a shoe that, shoes don't really eliminate a lot of stress, but they move it around. So carbon plates puts the stress Achilles, calf, foot, but then maximum cushioning shoes take pressure off that system if they're a little more flexible. But then where is that going? It's your knees are getting a little more, your hips are getting a little more. So it just depends.
Right. Yeah, I think if you look at the type of runner too, maybe the sprinters are probably the carbon base, the fancy Nike shoes.
Yeah, they always have been. The sprinter spikes have been rigid now for a long time. It was an obvious advantage. So it's kind of surprising that you mentioned that. Why did it take so long? Yeah. Like, if we know it's more explosive for 100 meters, that doesn't change the fact if it's a little more explosive for a marathon, it should translate. But I don't think I think the risk of injury's gone up a lot more.
I think so. I think
in the distance runners versus sprinters, because sprinters are going to be in it a couple hours a week. I mean, distance runners, could be one long run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a big push from the distance runners to go more minimalist compared to maybe a marathon runner. I know that sounds crazy. Marathon is a long distance, but I think once you dabble in 50 miles and so, it's getting to the what is that brand? Ultra,
the zero drop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, but even Ultra's gotten sucked up. The magic of Ultra is zero drop, but their stack heights are getting thicker, not thinner.
They are.
But they're getting lighter. Again, it's back to, I mean, Hoka's the pioneer here, because Hoka drops are around 4 or 5 millimeters. Well, traditional drops 10 or 12. So Hoka brought the drop down. Ultra's magic is that wide toe box, the natural fit. They've always been zero drop. Yeah. But now the shoes are lighter, but the stack heights, they keep getting thicker even though they're lighter. So what's minimal? Zero drop's more minimal than having a heel slope. Yeah. But thicker stack heights less minimal than a get me closer to the ground. We don't even know what minimal is. I mean, I think for right now, obviously thicker, lighter, and lower drop is the trend, and that'll continue to evolve and change. It always has. I mean, it's like evolution. Like, we're not done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we're not done evolving here. We just do it slow enough we can't see it.
I think talking to you throughout this conversation kind of made me realize, because I want to do minimalist, but I don't think maybe that's not for me, because it's kind of like diet.
But it's also not an all or nothing thing. You can do minimalism in certain amounts that can benefit you without going batshit crazy all in. And that's, again, it's back to, we have trouble with this in our society. We try to go all in. We can't just cut out dessert. We go keto.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not knocking anybody who's had benefit, because I don't want the keto people coming out.
They'll come after you.
They'll come after you,
I'll
man.
get you.
But it's a little bit goes a long way with some of these things. Also, it sets you up, right? So let's say you start out, you get a pair of minimal shoes, or you start running barefoot on grass a little bit, and you have some, it feels good. It's great. You can always slowly build that up. But I think we can all agree that it's much more risky, no matter how much the human body's incredible. I mean, you can train yourself to run totally barefoot on concrete in the middle of summer, but why would you? You're going to step on a rock. I mean, at some point, you're going to step on a twig and break your foot.
Yeah.
So just don't do that. But yeah, I think minimalist. I've had my kids running barefoot, on the inside of the track, because I think there's value there. It's just, now when they're coming back from an injury, I might not let them do it. I mean, it's a slow, so I just think you put it in its place, and then dabble in it,
Yeah.
and then see where your body takes you. I do think, though, what's going to be interesting to watch is what's next, right? Okay, maximal stuff's obviously taken over, 43 millimeter thick midsoles.
Right.
Like, where do we go? Like, are they going to be 90? Am I going to be 6'8"? Like, shoes are now as rigid as they can get. They won't bend. So you can't get more rigid than that. So,
Yeah.
like, what's going to happen. The pendulum's going to swing. The next thing's going to be these ultra flexible, low to the ground, minimal, like Xeno shoes. They're going to be that's going to be the next thing.
Like gum, made of gum.
You spray it on the bottom of your foot every week, and you just have to respray it every week, because that's what's coming. Because we're just foolish. We can't keep our minds on anything,
Yeah, and history repeats. I'm glad at least Ultra had come out with the wide toe box, because I always had issues with the pinky toe kind of rubbing, and we try to compensate for that. So I think that's a good movement forward. Well,
Ultra pioneered that. The nice thing is it's translated over to the other brands. Things are getting less. Just interesting. Go into any mall, go into any Foot Locker, and look at the toe box of Nike and Adidas. Narrow, long, and pointy, because that's what they want them to look like. It's not a performance issue. It's just a visual issue. Now go and look at Ultra, Topo, but then look at the new Brooks coming out. Look at the Sauconys coming out. Everything is going more rounded and less pointy. From a performance standpoint, there's no benefit in having a narrow, pointy toe box. So Ultra and, to a lesser extent, Topo is pulled these vendors look at each other. They watch each other. The developers and engineers change companies. So yeah, it's funny how all of a sudden Brooks has this more rounded toe box, and you're like, well, that's good. That's good. That's a good evolution,
Yeah, it's just like truck companies or car companies.
Same thing.
They look all the same. They just got a different logo on there. I want to get into you kind of build a community through your store, and
we've tried to, yeah.
You did. You were doing runs for a while. I don't know if you
we
picked
just
it back
started
up.
up 3 weeks again.
Perfect.
We had a whopping 8 people this last week. I was very excited.
That's pretty good though. But I know, your numbers are higher.
Beings. It's been great.
What are those? Explain.
What are people? They're people who, now that so many people have gotten their government trackers, it's important for us to congregate so the government can tell where we all are at the same time.
They'll find you.
Oh yeah, it wasn't our phone they were tracking. They were just waiting for this vaccine to get us.
Yeah. So how's that going?
It's been great. I mean, obviously retail this last year has been more of a contact sport. We're definitely more exposed, hence all of us getting COVID at the store, except for Hannah. Hannah didn't get COVID.
Superior genes.
Yeah, what'd she do?
Stupid
Why not?
young people. They're stupid.
She takes vitamins. She takes her vitamins.
But it was a weird year, and it's nice to see. Hopefully we get lucky and none of these variants turn out to be more than just, really exciting stories in the newspaper. But I feel like we're going the right direction. From a guy in a shoe store.
I'm seeing I Am Legend, but who knows?
I know. Well, I should have been a zombie by now. If the 28 days from the vaccine, I was waiting. I was going that first 28 days to make sure we didn't have a zombie break.
Put on your calendar. I should be a zombie.
Oh, but the look at people's faces when I did get my first vaccine shot, because my arm was sore. That shit sucked. I was in the store helping people, like, man, my government tracker is killing me. And I had a couple of these guys who'd driven in like from down south, and they're like, you let the government mark you. I'm like, I got really sick. Yes, they can mark me as long as I don't get sick again. That was terrible. You know, it could be both. It could be a tracker and a vaccine. I'm hoping the vaccine part.
Yeah, just please work.
So that was kind of funny because that was uncomfortable. But yeah, we're all paranoid, crazy people on some level. So
yeah. How can people get involved in your runs? A lot of people need community. I like running with people. Like
Wednesday, we do our runs Wednesday at 6:30 at the store. We usually kick, that's when the store closes. So by 6:35, 6:40, we're out going. We have all different paces. We do kind of the same. Everybody does kind of the same loop. So even people of different paces, we all run together for a while, and then depending on how far you want to go, you'll go to the next light or the next light. Pearland Area Road Running is another great local resource. It's the big club that's in Pearland. They've got well over 300 members now. Their website's goparr.com. So that's another good resource because if you join, it was free last year to join. I'm not sure if they're charging for this next year because they're going to have more actual supported events again. But that's a pretty neat page to get on just because there's so many meetups and, east side of Pearland, west side of Pearland, even out in Alvin, they're all over the place.
Wow.
Are y'all going to expand into Lake Jackson? I know y'all did right before COVID. Are y'all going to redo that?
According to my wife, I actually caused the pandemic by being arrogant and thinking we needed another store. So yeah, we opened February 1st, and
right before.
Yeah, that worked out.
Are y'all thinking about doing it again?
No.
Well,
let me pay off the loan first.
Okay.
The small business loan I took to open the store that
we'll hold you to that.
Was open for 5 weeks and then closed for 5 weeks and then nobody came in for 2 weeks. Like, oh shit. Circle the wagons.
I did. I was there.
We circled the wagons. Yeah.
It was a good move. I mean,
I think the market's viable down there. It's just, the problem is I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. I thought having 2 stores would be cool. It just made it more stressful. And, based on my other career moves, money's a thing, but it's not the thing. And I'm just way more comfortable with one location. I feel like I can have more control. I got awesome people that work with me. So, I mean, my life is pretty easy right now. So it's really hard for me to get out of my comfort zone again since last time, 500,000 Americans died.
Yeah, that's understandable.
And counting. Which, according to my wife, is all my fault. I'm sorry.
I'm starting to think so too.
Listening to that,
you got a lot of power coming from you, just exuding power.
Did you do this?
It's I would really hope not.
Yeah.
Well, y'all are doing
because we tried to do everything the right way. Like when everything got shut down, like we shut our store down when we were supposed to. Like when we got COVID, like we shut the store down. We called all the people who were in the store the 3 days before. Like we tried to handle this the right way. I mean, some of there weren't great answers, but we're super lucky. I mean, we're one of the running stores and bike stores actually did relatively well during the pandemic overall. So we were super lucky, but we tried to do the right thing, but half the people are always mad at you for something. So
you're definitely in the right spot. I think the running community around here is so large. It's such a thing around here. Lake Jackson, Pearland, a lot of people are in it. So,
and more. And I mean, if you really look at it though, like on the national scale, like anything that brings more health and wellness to our community is a good thing because we're not very healthy or well. I mean, just as far as our demographics, we're not great. So, what I really get a kick out of though is adding people who are a surprise. Like that's where I get my shits and giggles is, having some dude roll in and the doctor told him he had to walk or he's going to die, and then 2 years later he's run his first 10K and he's like the biggest running nerd ever.
Heck
like,
yeah.
Dude, that's fantastic. And those guys are also the more supportive of everybody else, right? They don't have any arrogance. They're the biggest cheerleaders. So I like seeing those guys and gals. That's where I have more fun with that, I think, than anything is watching people just change their lives completely based on what they do for 1 hour a day. Like that 1 hour a day makes them eat better, makes them sleep better, makes them lose weight, makes them have much better, their ego's much healthier. That's pretty cool. All for an hour a day.
Yeah.
Like it's not like you can't really run more on average than can't really walk or run at pace more than an hour a day or you'll break. So there's some, self-limiting, guardrails.
Agreed.
I love that you said that. We talk about that all the time, how running changes more than just your physique.
Because everything has to revolve around it. You got to go to bed at the right time. Or if you're a nighttime runner, I'm mostly a nighttime runner. It changes how I eat during the day if I'm going to run that evening. Or if I'm a morning person, it changes what I have for dinner the night before and when I go to bed. Like, it all kind of feeds on itself.
And COVID might have hit y'all short term, but I think this has made a lot of people change their minds about health, and they're wanting to get out there and run and work out.
This has been good.
So yeah, I think
I
good.
got no complaints. I mean, we're a small store. I mean, we're not a grand enterprise by any stretch, but our business has grown in the last year, which has been nice to see. But again, I mean, the nice thing about having the business grow is I can take better care of my people, that you're just a little more comfortable. I can buy more shoes, even shoes I probably shouldn't buy, but I want them in my store because they're fantastic. And then buy more widths and buy more shoes for the people who I know are our customers, but yeah, I just knocked on wood. It's
I'm gonna hear.
It's been good. Now we're not growing like bike stores are growing.
Yeah, but running's
Pearland Bicycles, I see you.
Yeah. Right, they're right next door, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, they've done great. Yeah, good for them.
Yeah. So, how can people get a hold of you? Are y'all? I know you got a website, social media presence too.
wildpearrunning.com. We're real active on Facebook, Twitter. We're kind of old for Instagram.
Oh no, Instagram's where it's at, man.
I can't. Why do I need so many? Can't just everybody go to one damn place?
It's annoying, but
Jesus Christ, one place, people. Stop with 19. I'm not going to be on TikTok.
Okay? So that was my next thing. You have to get on TikTok.
But why do we need to be on 12 plays? I think everybody needs to go out of business except for one. I'll be on that one.
Well, I very much appreciated. I know Mike appreciated, and
it was a blast.
I wish you success, and I'm glad
y'all too.
I'm glad business is picking back up for y'all.
Now, how is the podcast growing? What episode are we on now?
Man, you're 15.
15.
You're 15.
You're 15.
Is it growing?
A little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about y'all. So why did you
like? Whoo!
Let's not talk about us.
I'm not ready for this.
We don't know anything.
Well, I appreciate it. And Facebook, website in Pearland. What's the address in Pearland?
9330 Broadway. We're right across the street from Buffalo Wild Wings, right at 518 and County Road 90.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate it.
Yes, there is a donut shop about 6 doors down. So
that you frequent.
If you really want to work on running and then diabetes, we can.
Heavy breathing.
Well, thank you, Dave.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Bye.